Indigenous women and girls in Canada are overrepresented in prostitution, and I think it's important for people to know this is true when it comes to prostitution on the street, so the most visible form of prostitution. But this is also true in that most Indigenous women who are in prostitution are moving in between the street, their apartment, a brothel, a car. So this idea that Indigenous women are only overrepresented in street prostitution is, I think, only actually giving us a little glimpse into the actual overrepresentation. I was fortunate to have a conversation with a number of Indigenous women who had exited prostitution. And that was the experience of every woman in that room, was going from, on the internet, out onto the street, into pornography, into a brothel. And there was one woman that I remember quite well, and she was what is considered a high-class escort, in quotation marks. And so we're actually, where we don't have a sense of the actual overrepresentation of Indigenous women. And I think it's important to say as well, and I think what Rosen was saying is the shame really keeps some women from ever speaking out. So there are women who have exited prostitution who will never look back and will never say a word about what happened. And we don't hear from those Indigenous women or those women either. So the issue is much, much bigger than we know. So the first obstacle generally would be, I think, the material conditions of our lives as Indigenous women and girls. So this includes very high rates of poverty, high rates of sexual abuse as girls, and this is both inside and outside of Indigenous communities. So looking at abuse from Indigenous men and also from non-Indigenous men. We know that Indigenous children generally are grossly overrepresented in the foster care system. And particularly for girls, the rates of sexual abuse in those homes is also very, very high. Indigenous women are very often criminalized for poverty-related crimes, for defending ourselves. And the fastest growing prison population in Canada right now is Indigenous girls. And so these girls are being set up, are already not learning the skills that they need to learn. They're not, getting access to love and care and guidance and all of these things that we need as girls to be able to, go out into this world that hates us. When you're an Indigenous girl, you grow up with two expectations. One is that it's not if you're raped, it's when and how many times. And the other expectation is that you might not make it to adulthood. So that's where we start from.